In 1892, an Aboriginal stockman named Jackie Nolan was working a remote sheep station in South Australia's far north when he found something embedded in the cracked surface of a dry salt lake. The bones of an animal, larger than anything alive on the continent today. Station owner F.B. Raglis was shown the site 2 days later, and word eventually reached the South Australian Museum. What followed was the discovery of the largest graveyard of prehistoric giants ever found in Australia. And more than a century of expeditions still haven't fully explained why so many died there, together, in one place. Before we continue, if you want to keep discussing ancient Australian discoveries like this one with other people who find this stuff as fascinating as we do, we've started a free Skool community linked below where we dig into these sites together. Come join us. A lake that was once something else entirely, Lake Calabona sits in one of the driest, lowest rainfall corners of the Australian continent. A dry salt lake stretching over 70 kilometres long, part of a horseshoe chain of dead lakes curving around the northern Flinders Ranges. It hasn't held meaningful water in longer than anyone can precisely say. But the fossil record buried in its cracked mud tells a very different story about what this landscape used to be. Plant material recovered alongside the bones, including preserved seed cones, points to a period when this entire region was forest or woodland, fed by a genuinely wetter inland climate. Something happened to that climate, the rain stopped, the lake began drying, and the animals that depended on it were caught in the transition. What the museum team actually found. The South Australian Museum sent geologist Henry Hurst to investigate, and in 1893 he began excavating what turned out to be an almost unbelievable concentration of remains. Hurst documented as many as 360 individual Diprotodon, the largest marsupial ever to have existed. An animal built like a hippopotamus but distantly related to the modern wombat, standing over 1.5 metres at the shoulder and weighing close to 3 tonnes. Alongside them lay the remains of Genyornis newtoni, an enormous flightless bird, along with giant kangaroos and other extinct megafauna, many with skeletons still articulated, meaning the bones were preserved in their original anatomical position, rather than scattered by scavengers or time. The condition of the find was extraordinary by any standard. Later, excavation recovered a Diprotodon with its stomach contents still intact, undigested leaves and twigs from an animal's final meal, sealed for over 50,000 years. Fossilised footprints were also preserved directly in the old lake bed, giving researchers something rock and bone alone couldn't. A literal record of how these animals actually walked before they died. The part that still isn't settled. What killed them, on paper, seems straightforward enough. Paleontologist Richard Tedford's leading explanation is that family groups became trapped in the soft mud while crossing the drying lake bed, searching for the last remaining water, sinking under their own enormous weight until they could no longer move. Many specimens support this directly, found with well-preserved lower bodies, but crushed, distorted skulls, consistent with animals that died slowly, sinking upright before their heads eventually dropped. But the specifics of what actually happened here have never been fully agreed upon. Diprotodon wasn't a herd animal in the way the sheer numbers at Callabonna might suggest, since marsupials generally don't form large social groups, meaning 36 individual family groups, not one Diprotodon population, would need to have made the same fatal choice at broadly the same drying lake, at different points across an unknown span of time. Nobody has produced a fully accepted explanation for why this exact lake became such a consistent trap. Generation after generation, when other drying inland lakes across the same period haven't produced anything close to Callabonna's scale. Radiocarbon work suggests some individuals may have still been alive as recently as 20,000 years ago, well after Diprotodon is generally believed to have vanished elsewhere on the continent, adding yet another open question to a site that keeps resisting a clean answer. Excavation at Callabonna slowed for decades after Hirst's original expeditions, before resuming in the 1970s, and fieldwork has continued intermittently since, hampered by the site's remoteness and the same brutal, waterless conditions that likely killed the animals in the first place. The lake was formally declared a protected fossil reserve in 1901, a rare piece of legislation that remains in force today, and it was added to the South Australian Heritage Register in 1997, specifically for its paleontological significance. Even so, a 2002 museum assessment noted the site receives only minimal active management under its current legal protections. What sits beneath Lake Calabonna's cracked white surface today is still, by the museum's own account, only partially understood. A landscape that was once rainforest, a graveyard that may represent one drought, or dozens, spread across thousands of years, and animals whose final moments are frozen, exactly as they happened, sinking into mud that has never fully given up its answers.